So hopefully everybody can see that now. So yeah, thank you, Scarlett. So I'm James Moulding. I'm the Service Desk Manager for Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust. So we look after the mental health needs of people across Norfolk and Suffolk. And I really want to start this presentation off by sort of saying that that I'm not really an expert in any of this stuff. And I'm just going to be talking about our experience and how we grew as an organisation and how we've evolved and adapted over the last 4.5 years. I'll be talking about, because that's how long I've worked for NSFT. So I thought a great place to start would be looking at where we were when I joined NSFT, which was tail end of 2016, December 2016 I joined, so 4.5 years ago, and just starting with the challenges that we faced. So the organisation I joined, we had no SLA, nothing at all in writing between us and the customer, nothing that explained what level of service we can expect, what level of service they can expect, nothing about XLAs, nothing at all. We had absolutely nothing in writing. We had no department-wide reporting. We might have individual teams, you know, my predecessor, the services team leader, might have sent the service delivery manager a report once a month of this is the service desk, how we're doing, but nothing department-wide, and therefore it shouldn't be too surprising, zero transparency as well. You know, how service desk was doing was a very insular thing. We couldn't tell how the third line teams were doing. We couldn't tell how anyone was doing, apart from our own little siloed world. And no customer satisfaction. Obviously, what we're talking about today, customer-centric performance. We had nothing in terms of customer satisfaction. We'd maybe periodically send out a survey, but that was about the limit of it. And no proactive problem management. We had nothing that said, you know, this is what we should be tackling. This is, you know, if we want to reduce the number of incidents, this is what we should be doing. Absolutely nothing. So none of that. This should come as no surprise then. We had zero performance accountability. That is, we weren't held accountable to the organisation. The individual teams weren't held accountable. Individuals themselves on teams might be slightly held to account, but not really. It's very difficult to hold an individual to account if their team isn't being held to account. But what I do want to say is it wasn't all bad. We were actually in a fairly good position. So we had 3 strings to our bows. At least I think we had 3 strings to our bows. There were plenty of others, but these are the 3 I think are most important. So we had a really strong and stable leadership team. So our head of IT is a really great chap, very driven, very hardworking, and cares a lot about the organisation and cares about, you know, what we deliver and performance that we achieve. And this isn't me just trying to get a pay rise from my boss. He probably won't even watch this. So. But we also had a very clear shared mission. So this is really important, at least it was to us. So you can see our organisation shared mission at the bottom of this slide, which is working together for better mental health. And it really resonates well across our entire organisation. I think, you know, there's very few people, if anybody, in the entire 6,000 staff trust that don't want to improve the mental health of Norfolk and Suffolk. And you know, in IT, we share that mission. We want to deliver better mental health. You know, we want the technology we deliver and the technology we support to better support our patients and our service users. And then the last point is that we have the right tools for the job. I know others have talked today about the sort of tool set, and but if we didn't have the right tools to actually give us reports and be able to start looking at this performance management and being able to look at metrics, we wouldn't have been able to get to where we are today. So I just want to skip forward a little bit now, and rather than talk about the journey, I'm going to talk about the end point and then come back to the journey. So where are we now? And before I get too into this slide, I want to say we're not perfect in any way, shape or form, and there's still a lot of work we need to do, but this is just, you know, where we've got to so far on our journey. So the first point is we do have an SLA. So it came in August 2018. 1st of August 2018, we launched our SLA. And it does incorporate customer experience, and it's a really key element of our SLA. It's customer satisfaction. You know, we get held to account if we aren't meeting the level of experience our customers expect, then we fail that particular part of the SLA. We now have department-wide reporting. So I talked in the last slide that we had no transparency and nothing across the department. We now have daily, weekly, and monthly reports. You know, we have dashboards that are real time almost of how are we performing as a department, and you know, I can quickly look at a glance if I want to see, as the service manager, if I want to see how another team, how our field team are doing, you know, I just need to look at that daily dashboard and just see, great, that's, you know, they're doing great today, or crikey, you know, perhaps we need to help them. And now we also have scheduled meetings where we discuss those metrics, those department-wide reports. We have not daily meetings, but you know, weekly, where we look through the stats. We have monthly ones where we have to, each team manager is expected to explain their team's monthly reports, and then ultimately it feeds into a quarterly report that goes to our board of directors. We now have customer satisfaction captured after each job. I pause over the word captured because I lie a little bit in the use of that word. We don't necessarily capture satisfaction after every job, because that would require customers to give us their satisfaction after every job, but we certainly ask for it. So every single job that goes out, you know, we're now capturing that, and we actually look at it and we actually review it, and we're looking for, you know, are people unhappy? Are people happy? You know, when we've made somebody say to us that they are truly miserable with something we've done, you know, we actually sit and we look and analyze it and we talk to that customer about what could we have done better for you. We now have reactive and proactive problem management. So 4.5 years ago, we may have done a lip service to problem management as far as doing some root cause analysis on some major incidents, but we now actually have an incident trending report which shows us how many incidents we're getting in each of our categories. I mean, only last week, I actually had a meeting with our problem manager, which wasn't a role that existed 4.5 years ago, but I had a meeting last week with our problem manager where I was talking about standard deviation and variation of incidents and these terms that just wouldn't have been discussed in the slightest 4.5 years ago. We're now actually looking at, doing some proper analytics on this stuff and being able to see, okay, we're not just looking at what is causing us the most incidents. We're now looking at, okay, where's the outliers? So, one particular service might not generate a huge number of incidents, but look, this week we've suddenly had a huge spike of 20 or 30 incidents, which is really unusual for that service. If we were just looking at the highest number of incidents, that would just get lost in the weeds. And ultimately, what all this brings together is accountability at all levels. Maybe a bit of an exaggeration at all levels, but certainly we try to bring accountability at all levels. We now have to answer to the board if we aren't meeting our SLA, if we're finding our performance is slacking. We have to answer to that. I have to attend meetings where I am accountable for my team's performance, and my individual members of my team, they have an individual performance dashboard that they review, and I review with them, and they're held to account of the performance level they achieve. And finally, all of this leads us to better data-driven decisions. This year, as many people, or in the last 12 months, I should say, we've obviously been affected by COVID, and it's meant that we need more staff. 4.5 years ago, if I'd gone to ask for more staff, more headcount, I'd have plucked a number out of the air, licked my fingers, stuck it in the air, and gone, that's about how many I need. Whereas now, when I went last year to the head of IT and said, this is how many staff I need, I was actually able to present, this is the numbers, this is the raw data of, not raw data, the process data. This is me looking at, how many telephone calls we're getting, how many self-service jobs we're getting, how many, we've got live chat, we've got all this new channels. We need additional staff, and using the numbers, we're able to do it. So that's where we are now. It's obviously been a long journey, and I've touched on a little bit of how we got there, but I want to take it right back to that August 2018 when we were negotiating our SLA. So what we found was the first thing we needed to do, because our board of directors, and this is probably a sentiment that is shared by a lot of organisations, they felt that IT, we were our own department, our metrics, what we provide are for us. They're not, our performance is our own performance. Getting that mentality of we're a service to you, we provide a service, was a real challenge. So we had to understand the level of service we could provide so that we could go to the board and say, we want to negotiate an agreement. We want to negotiate what level of service you can expect from us. And really, this was about us looking at our tool set that we've been using for about two years at the point that we were having these negotiations. It was about looking at, okay, how quickly have we been resolving incidents? How quickly are we turning around service requests? Even without the SLA, we can at least track how long it's taken, and then how many touch points there are with customers, and we had the periodic survey which told us roughly how happy people were with us. So that was the first thing we had to do. We had to look at the data we already had. We had to start with what we had, and this really did highlight to us. And we put a little bit of a stretch in there as well. We wanted to provide the best we could, so we over-egged ourselves a little bit, to use a phrase. But then the second thing, and really, I could have put these either way round because they were just as important as each other, and really they were two steps we did in parallel, was understanding what the customer actually cares about. You know, we had long discussions about this, and we still continue to have these discussions about what the customer cares about. For example, you know, we would take in an early draft, we would have, you know, this is the service availability of server X, and the customer would turn around and go, or the board, or whoever we were talking to, whoever we were gathering this feedback from, they would turn around and say to us, well, I don't know what that server is. What is that server? Whereas through the actual conversation, through the feedback, what we found out was our customers really cared about new starters in the trust. Our trust is going through, and has been for years, going through continual growth. In the last year alone, we've gained something like 1,000 extra staff. And so what our customer really cares about is that day one, their new staff have IT provision, so they're not just sat there being paid to do nothing. This was a real big concern. That wasn't in our SLA. Our original draft of what we were going to give to the board wasn't in there. You know, we weren't going to have anything about new starters. There was going to be something about service requests, of course there was, but nothing specific. And now, actually nearly half our SLA is entirely focused around the new starter experience because it's so important to our trust. So it's really key that you gather that information, that you do truly understand what they care about. And yeah, they didn't, our customers at least didn't care about some obscure server that does some back office function and what percentage of uptime it's got. They cared about that they weren't paying staff to sit around doing anything. It's more though, perhaps they cared about that there's service users they're not providing for. So the next thing we did was we'd done all that negotiation, agreed it was launched the SLA, and I cannot stress enough how important this step was to us. You know, we did a big piece, we got the board buy-in, obviously, but you know, we spoke to people, we told them this is coming. We have a business partnership system where a member of our senior leadership team in IT attends various departments in the trust, attends their governance meetings, and you know, we talked about it at those meetings. We talked about and you know, we talked about it to our staff. You know, I would, every team meeting, I would sit there and I would go, this is the SLA, it's coming, look out for it. You know, it's what you need to now, you know, what our customers now expect of us. So can't overstate launching it was a huge step. We then had to report on it. There was, you know, and that's obviously what we're talking about today is metrics. But if we hadn't reported on it, there was no point in creating this agreement. And so we had to create a little bit of automation, a little bit to make it as easy as possible. And then also it's really important, and I feel like I've really been quite negative in this presentation. I keep talking about failings and challenges and etc. But you know, but it is important to explain where we were failing. You know, if we weren't meeting an SLA, one of the KPIs in our SLA, why weren't we meeting it? But also to look at the successes. You know, I haven't put that on the slide, but that's just as important to look at those successes. You know, we would look at, okay, you know, we're doing terribly in service requests, we're doing brilliantly in incidents. Why is that? You know, what's going on here? You know, we're new starters who are coming through our permanent recruitment channel, getting fantastic service. New starters coming through temporary agencies, not so great. You know, why is that? And yeah, reviewing customer feedback. That's a really important thing that we did. You know, we constantly do that. I said it in the last slide. We just want as much information from our customers as we possibly can get. So we constantly review those feedbacks. And then, yeah, negotiate any changes. The SLA for us is a shifting beast. It constantly needs to evolve and change. I've already said the word COVID in this presentation. You know, that wasn't something we predicted, and the way people work now and the way we operate is completely different to what we did 18 months ago. The SLA from 18 months ago doesn't, you know, explicitly say that we'll provide remote working solutions and blah blah blah, and you know, and how our clinicians speak to and talk to patients. You know, none of that was in our SLA, and you know, that was, you know, clearly that's hugely important to the trust now. So we negotiated and we changed it, and you know, we made it relevant to the world we live in now. And you know, if things change, and almost certainly will continue to change, we'll continue that and continue to change that. So I'm not going to sell SDI, but they can do that themselves. But we also joined the SDI accreditation program in 2018 as well, I believe it was, start of 2018. And Concept 8, which is all about metrics, you know, that was hugely important to us, you know, because actually a lot of that were things we never even considered measuring. And actually, by looking at them and talking about them, we were able to drive value from every single one of the reports that SDI were asking us to produce. And so even if you're not doing the accreditation, I would recommend looking through them and just trying to generate those reports, just so you can actually understand what your customer experience is. I've only got one last slide, which is where are we going now? And this is only a very short thing. So this is, I consider this a real continuing journey, always moving forward. So the first thing we're looking at is process automation, and actually I talked a bit about service processing, you know, getting rid of some of them, replacing them with process automation. And metrics is the key to that, because we need to measure to make sure that we're actually getting value from those processes that we're automating. If we find that actually things are slower, or there's more mistakes being made because of process automation, then we just have to stop doing process automation and rethink it. Improved analytics, you know, we now use Power BI extensively across our other BI tools are available, but we use Microsoft Power BI, and you know, the analytics that gives us, and the insights that it offers us is something that, you know, we're only just starting to utilize. Better predictions, same again really as before. You know, if we can use this data better, we can make better predictions. We can, you know, I know how many staff I need next year if something happens. You know, it's about looking at where we are now, but where we're going. And then finally, the last point, I've said it in the last two slides, is reviewing and renegotiating the SLA. It's a constant evolving thing to us, and should be to everybody. So we're just going to keep doing it. Anyway, that's the end of all my slides. Thank you for listening. I apologise, I got the lunchtime slot, so hopefully everybody got something from it. And yeah, any questions?
Thanks a lot for that, James. We have a couple of questions. One from Tracy, which says, can you give examples on the type of proactive problem management you do?
Yeah, so a good example is we look at the volume of incident. I'm trying to think actually what a good example would be. So we so a good example would be actually just that looking at okay, yes, we know how many incidents we're getting in, but something like we have our VPN solution, which is now used extensively more than ever before. And before we all shifted to working from home, we would have we could see that incident trending of, we've got a certain number of VPN issues. They're quite small. We kind of ignored them. They were only minor. People had to come into the office and re-establish the VPN, happen once a month or so. But proactively, we saw that actually what's going to happen is, now that people are working from home, that volume is going to ramp up. So we use proactive problem management to assess those number of incidents and then find solution, and then actually say, okay, there's nothing major going on here. There's just this constant little background noise of VPN issues. And yeah, that's been a big drive over the last year to really drive them down.
Okay, great. We have time for probably one more question. Ian has asked, how is your response rate for surveys and how have you improved this?
Yeah, so actually, I forgot to say, yeah, we actually have a really good response rate. Well, I think it's really good. We have about 15%, which I think is certainly the highest I've seen anywhere I've worked. The way we did it was, again, it's about understanding what the customer cares about and what the customer wants and needs. So our customers, like any of our customers, are very busy people, and they don't want to be filling in a survey every single time. So all our customer satisfaction survey is here's a button. Were you happy? Not happy? I think it's very pleased, quite happy, not happy, and dissatisfied, or something like that. And then they click that, it records it, and then they get the option to leave a comment. And just by being very, very quick, and by not being too invasive, we've really driven up. We went from something like 2% to 15% over. It took us about 6 months to a year to get there, but yeah, really driven that up.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, James.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Scarlett.
Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye.